Welcome to the Vet Dental Show. I'm Brett Beckman, board certified veterinary dentist, and we bring this podcast to you every Wednesday as a veterinarian, as a technician, as a dentistry team to help you be even better at veterinary dentistry in your practice. We're sponsored and partnered today with the Veterinary Dental Practitioner Program. If you're interested in being among the best anywhere in general practice as a team in veterinary dentistry, I invite you to request an invitation. Just go to ivdi.org/INV, like invitation, first three letters INV. So IVDI, International Veterinary Dentistry Institute, ivdi.org/INV, and we'll get you the information that you need.
What do you see practices who are specializing in this? What kind of opportunities are there with client education and kind of converting clients to this way of thinking?
Well, interesting that you asked that, because I was doing some search just for to check out our own rankings and search for different things the other day, and I came across a practice. I won't name the practice, but it had advanced veterinarian specialty in it, but it wasn't a specialty practice. It was just a general practice that had a level of care that they could provide that's similar to what we're talking about. And they had multiple 5-star ratings on Yelp and on Google. And their perception within the area, I'm sure, is these folks really know what they're doing with dentistry. And they definitely are getting referrals from that internet exposure and search exposure, but they're also probably getting referrals from some of the practitioners around the area, whether or not it's driven from their clients or not, because if there's no one else in the area that's providing that service and the clients are asking for it, then that practice is going to be the go-to practice even for the generalists to send to a generalist to get those things done. And we see that in our Veterinary Dentistry Academy group. We've got a group of 150 plus practices that are at that standard of care, that have been through our courses, that have been through our wet labs, that experience that very same thing. They work to build the quality of their practice, and then they use social media, they use search, they use their web pages that are specific for dentistry and optimize those for search, and so they get a lot of traffic coming into their website that shows the general clientele of the whole region how good their level of practice is and how good that standard of care is. And so the client ends up going to their vet and saying, hey, do you guys have dental radiography? Well, no. Well, I know of a practice that does, and it's this one. Can I go to them to have the procedure done? And that's fairly common among our group. So I know it happens. I see it multiple times, and so that's kind of the way things are going. If you can kind of shrug that old clean and jerk and embrace the new technology, embrace the new training, and get the practice to that level, you can certainly utilize that to your advantage. And again, you go back to that 80-20, the Pareto principle that you were talking about, and that's a perfect example of drawing that 20%, that kind of client that you really want into your practice.
Definitely. Well, there's your unique selling proposition. You can be first, you can be better, or different, and it sounds like you get all three of those, which is an ideal situation because most practices aren't doing that. So that's very exciting, and I'm sure it helps you to become a thought leader in your local area for sure, which is very, very important too. Anytime you can become the person who's the go-to as far as content creator, I mean, and there's so much you could do just in video alone for your practice. It would be really, really beneficial for sure. But have you seen kind of people that are working on this become like the thought leader? Like, we have Dr. Sue, the cancer vet, but, for your super local area, you could be, Dr. Brett, the vet, surgeon, dentist guy. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, absolutely, Brandon. And I think that should be the goal of the practices that embrace dentistry at that level.
Definitely. Well, just before we're going to switch gears just a little bit and talk about some other marketing stuff, but before we switch gears, you mentioned something about a library of client education images that you'd prepared for listeners of the podcast.
Oh, sure. Well, part of the success of the practices that are practicing at that level of care is being able to relay that to the client and give them a quality education. And over the years, I've always kind of had a hobby of photography, whether it be nature or landscapes or certainly dentistry over the years. And I put together a while back a library that consists of the common conditions that we see in veterinary dentistry and made those available to people for purchase. And so for your listeners today, we are going to give those to you as well as a variety of resources that are on our free membership website. So if the listeners would be interested in that, they can go to veterinarydentistry.net, and that's not .net versus .com, veterinarydentistry.net//Brandon, Brandon. And you'll get immediate access to that image library. And then the following day, I will send you a video that shows me actually in a client mode as if I were talking to the clients on how to use the 4 most valuable slides in that image library, which consist of slides that educate the client about the reason that they're there in general practice, and that's periodontal disease.
Very cool. Thank you so much for that. And there's a few other questions that I wanted to ask. One thing that I follow you on Facebook, and I also get your emails as well, and I'm really, really impressed with the quality of marketing that you and your companies do. And you also own several practices, and that's in Atlanta, I think. Is that correct?
Yes.
And so
Atlanta and Orlando.
Oh, that's right. And so I wanted to ask you, because I assume that you have people doing social media, you have people doing, specifically marketing for you. One thing that I see practices struggling a lot with is analysis paralysis, so to speak. They'll get the idea that they want to have somebody perform a service for their practice, but they're not sure how to evaluate that person and then take the steps to get that implemented in their practice. So I was wondering, do you have any tips for practices as they market themselves when they're looking for some kind of a vendor? What's your general rule of thumb, so to speak, for finding and attracting talent to work for you? I know that's kind of a really big question, but I'm really impressed with just pretty much every marketing aspect that you do.
Well, that's a great question, and part of the answer goes back a couple years to listening to a variety of podcasts like yours that have such a wide variety of marketing information and all these actionable things that you can actually not just listen to, but you can write down and make a list of steps to do to get to the point where you're just knocking off little chunks at a time, and that's kind of what you have to do. And I know you've talked about that before in some of your shows that you've done. But I had listened to several podcasts over the years, and one of them pointed to me to a Facebook expert who was the only one at the time, I believe, who was teaching a course in Facebook marketing, and that's Rick Mulready. And he has a podcast now called The Art of Paid Traffic, and he had a course called The Facebook Advantage. And I took that course. I knew nothing about marketing, and this was about 2 years ago, I guess. And I was completely blown away by all of the things that you could do with Facebook and how you could do retargeting and all the things that you talk about on a frequent basis. And so I started to do that myself. And I did a couple ads, and it was just, the course was fantastic, but I had to sit back and think, should I be doing this? And the answer was no. You know, you really need to do what you're best at. If you're a veterinarian, you want to do the things that a veterinarian does. You don't want to have to do things like marketing and things that you can delegate to other people. And so I asked Rick if he had a recommendation for someone who would be able to provide that for me. And he went back to the person, asked if he could refer me to that person, and he did. And my friend Michelle has been providing that for me from that point, which has been about a year and a half ago. So I have a Facebook marketing expert who took Rick's course, but is also that's her business, is to market, help other businesses market through Facebook. And then at the same time, there's a lot of other things that need to be done, especially when you've got a website that you're changing up a lot. And if you're in general practice and you have a website, you should be changing pages, adding content on a continual basis to increase your search exposure and let Google see what you're doing, because the more you add, the more quality content that you add, the more exposure you're going to get. So the next thing that I needed, and the thing that I would recommend that many of you as listeners look at from the potential of building your website and building your web pages so that they give you better exposure, and that is to hire someone to do your web development, even if it's on just a kind of a low-level basis. I have a full-time web developer from the Philippines who is absolutely fantastic. His name's Jiro, and we were on together 5 minutes before this. We started this interview working out some things for to complete the website for this image library for you guys. And he's very inexpensive. He works for me full-time, and that's available to general practices. The way that I found out about that was from a book by the name of Virtual Staff. Well, actually, the company's name is Virtual Staff Finder, and I can't recall the name of the book, but Chris Ducker is the founder of that group, and you can give them your qualifications for a general virtual assistant, and they will give you in detail 3 people to interview. You choose from those 3 people. If you don't like those 3 people, you have another 3 that they'll find for you. I've never had that experience, but they will do that as well for $350 to $450, and it's absolutely changed the way that we've been able to get out our content and to free up my time to do things that I need to be doing, not doing that kind of thing. So Virtual Staff Finder is an excellent group, and the Filipino people are just fantastic as far as their work ethic, and most of them are very fluent in English, so it's a great mix, and we really enjoy working with our web developer. So that's certainly something to consider.
That's some great info. Yeah, I've used virtual assistants through Odesk, which is, I'm sure, not as good of a vetting process because it's more time intensive. So that virtual assistant is very cool. I'll definitely link that in the podcast notes for sure. That's a really cool.
One other thing I'll add to that too, Brandon. The first virtual assistant that I had, his main duties were to post on social media. And lo and behold, not long after we started with him, Meet Edgar came online as a platform where you actually can put in your social posts in a queue from a library that you create, which takes no time at all. You can put old blog posts in there, you can put articles, you can put anything literally that you have posted online and schedule it to go out, and schedule it and forget it. You don't ever have to do it again. And we've had that up and online for going on 2 years now, and we've got probably 500 pieces of content in there, and we post twice a day, and once that 500 pieces of content have been posted, then it starts over again. So it's really a great resource. So we literally replaced his job and gave him a different job just by using that platform, which is about $49 a month. Now there are a lot of other platforms that are like that out that do more than that, and I can't remember the names of the last couple that I've looked at, but there are platforms out there that are like that are available that also help you produce the content. You can edit in them, and you've probably even mentioned them in some of your podcasts. You probably have them on the tip of your tongue now.
Yep, there's a few like Hootsuite and other ones too. But Edgar, actually, I kind of like Edgar the best out of all of those automated options, just because you get to fill the library once and it can spit it out automatically. And that's a really cool tool for sure. So if you have a content library built up, I think that's fantastic. And mixing in some native advertising for sure. But just like you said, it's important. I mean, you're a highly trained specialist in veterinary dentistry. To be having you do web development or anything like that is absolutely a waste of your skill set for sure. And so making best use of all of the skills that you have is the number one importance. Definitely some really good insight there. Well, thank you so much, Brett. I really appreciate you coming on the podcast today. And just so that everybody can be clear, where's the best place for people to find you at? And don't forget, again, it's veterinarydentistry.net/Brandon. I'll mention it and link it in the show as well. But where's some good places to find you as well? Is that the best spot to start, would you think?
Actually, that's great. That's where our courses are and all of our information.
I hope you enjoyed that episode. If you'd like more information about the Veterinary Dental Practitioners Program, please submit to request an invitation at ivdi.org/INV.